Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, everyone, and happy Wednesday. Here we find ourselves once again. If you are joining the chat, or the call, please just drop a 1 in the chat and let us know that you haven't got any sound issues and that everything is working perfectly. It's always nice to see some action and some interaction. Lovely, thanks, Lorna. Lovely. Oh, they're coming in so fast. So many unknown users. I tell you what, we've got a busy one today. And Dustin, have you caught your breath?
Just about.
Just about. We've
a bit of a
we
morning.
won't go. Yeah, we won't go into too much detail, but needless to say, the life of a GP partner is never dull. So before I move on, I want to just take this moment to wish Eid Mubarak to all of those that have been celebrating this week. It's the end of a spiritual and patient month, and we hope you've had a very successful Ramadan. Also, good to just start with a bit of housekeeping and let you know that the call is being recorded for prosperity and sharing purposes. So if you're really busy, a bit like Dustin this morning, and you need to drop off, don't worry about it. You can catch up later. Second of all, we love questions. So please, as we're going through, drop your questions in the chat or the Q&A and we'll get to them as soon as we can. My name's Lucy Glynn. I nearly said something completely different then, but my name really is Lucy Glynn. I'm the community manager here at Exon Health, and with me today we've got Mel Latto, head of product, as you know,
Hi.
and our esteemed, long-suffering pilot, Dr. Dustin Saint. Give us a wave. Oh, thank you. Right on cue. That's good. He's compliant. Delighted to have you on board today, Dustin. Really good to meet you at last. I've heard lots about you, but not had the pleasure until today. So for my benefit and the benefit of all of our lovely guests, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about yourself, your practice, and what's happened this morning.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Dustin Saint. I'm a GP in Long Stratton Medical Practice, which is, we're in rural Norfolk. So we're kind of halfway between Norwich and Ipswich. We've got about 11,500 odd patients and we cover about 100 square miles as a practice. So we are proper rural Norfolk, lots and lots of farmland, lots and lots of animals. So I'm a GP partner for 2 days a week. And I also I have an interest in IT and run primary care IT in the other 3 days a week. So a bit of a varied work life, to say the least. And this morning's been a busy one because we had a bit of an emergency in practice. I knew I had the webinar, but I was in a different room, didn't have a webcam, didn't have a microphone. So it was all a bit last minute. I think I've probably given you two a bit of a harsh attack. So I am really, really sorry for
putting
you through it this morning.
I'm absolutely fine. Absolutely fine, Dustin. Really, I am. But I think
you're checking your pulse
probably,
there, Lucy.
I was a little bit, yeah. It's still there. We're all right, just about. I think there's lots of people on this call that can probably relate to that, Dustin. So one question I've got, I guess, about your demographic is, what's the biggest challenge that you face with it being so rural?
I guess visits are a challenge because you can be out for a long period of time. So it can take pretty much an hour to get from one side of our practice patch to the other.
Wow.
So if I had 3 visits the other day, it took me 2 and a bit hours to do 3 visits. Just because of the geography, because I was at one end of the practice patch, other end of the practice patch, and then opposite corner of the practice patch. So that can be a bit of a challenge. And historically, connectivity has been a real challenge for us because when I started here 10 years ago, we had mobile phone coverage in about 15% of the practice patch.
Wow.
Rest of the practice patch, no mobile phone reception whatsoever. It's got a lot better over the years, so we're a lot better now than we ever have been before. But I guess historically, our kind of usage of digital tools and our patients' use of digital tools, if you ask flu clinic, you ask all of our patients, oh, can I check your mobile phone number? The majority response for the over 65s is, well, there's no point because I don't have it on and I don't really use it. So it's a different demographic, and that poses different challenges in terms of how we communicate with patients. And we're all kind of, I mean, everybody's kind of learning on this journey and getting better at using different tools, but we very much have to make sure we don't exclude our elderly patients who don't have access to some of these systems.
Yeah, quite right. How do you overcome that? Do you overcome
that? You try and mix and match what you can for what you can. So basically, if we can use digital communications for younger patients, so I mean, we've been really successful with doing asthma reviews remotely, and collecting information from patients who've got asthma remotely, because they're generally younger and more au fait with digital technology, and that means that frees up like that amount of time in our practice clinics, which then benefits us in that way. Equally, kind of where we can stream off other workflows or work challenges in a way that diverts people away from the telephone, so that we can try and keep the telephones clear for those people who do still need to phone us, and there are still a large number of our patients who do still need to phone us. We try and divert stuff off the phones where we can. So we've sort of taken sick notes and kind of gone, okay, let's put those online so that we can take those requests online. That's not taking the phone line up for those types of things. Let's take complaints, put those online as well, so that we can kind of stream people in that direction as well. So it's for us, it's about kind of looking at all of our different streams and flows of work and thinking, well, which of those can we manage online? Which of those do we have to manage via telephone? Trying to keep the focus of keeping as much stuff away from the telephone as possible, so that we've got our receptionists free to speak to our patients who need to contact us in that way.
And I think that's very much on topic, isn't it, for the theme of the webinar, actually, is trying to free up that capacity within the reception team and make appointments available. So we'll stay with the script a little bit, but I guess one question I've got, and it's slightly off topic, if you like, because I'm a little bit nosy, but we're obviously very grateful to you. You've been working with us as a pilot for how long, Mel?
Oh, it's probably coming on to 8-9 months now, isn't it, Dustin, in total?
Yep.
Okay, so long suffering is right. And I guess I just wanted to know from you, Mel, what is a pilot exactly? Because people listening to this might be quite interested in becoming pilots themselves if they find out what it is about.
Yeah, so we tend to pick and choose our pilots depending on the bit of technology. So a pilot to me is someone who has shown an interest in a new feature that we've talked around part of the roadmap and contacted our products team. It could be someone who has an interest in IT, like Dustin's obviously really close, works really closely with EMIS, and he has a very technical background. So this was really, and he helped us a lot with trying to resolve some of the EMIS issues that we were having with connecting the check and cancel, because of his close relationship and understanding that system really in depth. And they're just availability as well is really important. Obviously Dustin isn't quite as available as we'd like him to be, because he has like 400 jobs, doing amazing at all of them, but he's got a team of people as well that quite happy to help and get involved. So it's really just about making sure that the surgery is working well, we can do something to help, the interest in technology, and then we kind of approach pilots. And it might be, I think, Dustin, this is the first thing you've piloted for us, isn't it? So, and I try not to saturate our pilots with every single new change we're doing as well. So we'll leave Dustin alone for a little while we do the next round of stuff, because he has been working with us for months on
months and months. Oh, bless him. And that is what we're here to talk about, of course, check and cancel, which is a feature I feel like we've been discussing for quite some time. It's now on the verge of being released, though. Is that right, Mel?
Well, yeah, it's so our pilots are pretty happy with how it's working. Hopefully Dustin's going to say something along those lines in a minute. But we're also looking at early adopters now as well, so just slowly rolling it out, because we've got to make sure it can cope with the capacity and everything as well behind it. And every surgery has set up slightly differently. They work with their EMIS in a slightly different way, so I'm sure we're going to come up with a few odd pieces as well that might be not quite stable. So we've just got to really keep an eye on it as we're rolling it out. But we've got about another 7 going live in the next week. So yeah.
And to the chat, hands up to the early adopters. Yes, put a 2 in the chat if you are an early adopter. I'd love to hear from you. As that's all happening, for those that don't know, Check and Cancel is an appointment self-serve feature aimed at reducing traffic into reception and giving patients greater flexibility, which I think is to your point, Dustin, about freeing up capacity as well, isn't it? So as our original pilot of this feature, you've obviously been tinkering with it for a while. Is this something that our listeners today can get excited about?
Yeah, I think so. So to give you a bit of background about what we were doing previously, we'd got on our flow with you guys a kind of voicemail where patients could leave details about an appointment that they wanted to cancel, because we recognised that was an area where actually our reception staff we wanted to try and divert people to being able to leave that information without our reception staff definitely having to speak to them. And we've been managing it that way previously, which is why when Mel mentioned it to me, I was really excited about it, because we thought actually if patients can phone up and can actually check their appointment or cancel their appointment, then that would be really, really helpful. And so that was how we kind of got involved in the pilot, because we said we could see the value in it, because again, it's taking a defined kind of set of patients, and allowing them to take specific actions without actually having to speak to a member of our staff. That's a big tick for us in terms of trying to kind of reduce overall capacity or improve overall capacity on the telephone lines.
Fantastic. And I guess one question is, have you had any thoughts around safety precautions in terms of what type of appointment should not be made available to cancel?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I have to say, Mel and the team at Exxon have been really, really responsive when we've been working through and kind of going through the kind of requirements that we had as a practice. So when we first sort of met up about this many, many moons ago, we sort of said, well, like there are some appointments we don't want patients to be able to cancel in this way, because actually, like if it's 2 minutes before the appointment's going to happen, that's not a cancel, that's a DNA. And equally, if it's for a childhood vaccine, actually I don't want my patients with childhood vaccines cancelling their appointments, because we've got a very tight system in place in our practice to make sure that if the childhood vaccine is cancelled, that they're then rebooked within the time frame that we have to for QOF, because otherwise we're going to potentially risk QOF income. So there was a whole, so I think poor Mel's head kind of almost exploded with all the requirements that I gave her at the kind of outset of our conversations. But to be fair, that the team have gone away and built out all of those different requirements, so you can, in the system, which we're hugely impressed with, sort of say, right, okay, for X period of time before the appointment, you can't cancel it. And then you can also even go through to different slot types and say, so for this slot type, I want to adopt this approach. For this slot type, I want to adopt this approach, and actually put those configurations into the system. And again, my kind of take on this is, like, this isn't something that you rush implementation with. And I know Mel was so excited about getting it out to us, and then was quite disappointed that we took a week or two to actually think about it and kind of go, which groups of patients do we want to apply this to? And I think my kind of hint for anybody, if you are doing this, is have those thoughts before you set it live in your system. Talk to your teams about, right, we've got this great new feature, but actually, who should we be using it for? Who shouldn't we be using it for? What are the risks around this? And really, I mean, that's your responsibility as somebody who's looking after your patients. This is great new technology. We should all be embracing it, but we should also be thinking, well, who should it be used for? Who shouldn't it be used for? And what are the risks around all of that type of stuff? You know your patients best. You know your own systems best, and where you've got your own safety netting and your own kind of processes to make sure that you're mitigating those risks, make sure you put the time into doing it. But I mean, it's been a really positive experience for us in terms of how it's helped our practice.
We've worked really hard with you over the course of the 8 months just to get it right, and hopefully you've part of this process of going live. I haven't actually caught up with you much since you've gone live. What would be your favorite feature that we've actually as part of the check and cancel?
I think the favorite is the ability to differentiate on slot types, because that's been able to give us, like, so we can literally go, okay, our diabetics, like, we don't want, like, they're blighters, some of them, because they will just cancel their appointments, and actually we want them to be, our diabetic nurse really wants them to be actively followed up. So actually, like, the ability to be able to go, no, we don't want those ones to be able to be, we want them to be able to check, but we don't want them to be able to, so they can still check, but we don't want them to be able to cancel it that way, because actually our reception staff know if they're speaking to somebody who's a diabetic who's cancelling, they know they're going to have Nicola, our lead nurse, going, oh, hang on a minute, where did you put that patient back in? Because otherwise they'll just disappear and then we'll have to start all over again. So I think that, though, in that flexibility to be able to take differing approaches based on the type of slot that you've got the patient booked into has been really, really good for us.
Yeah, that surprises me, because when we were actually going through the testing, I think your face when it instantly cancelled out of EMIS, I thought that was going to be your favourite thing. So I'm quite shocked.
No, that's really cool. No, that was really cool. Like the fact that it does just, I mean, it literally, when we were testing it, it literally just removes the patient straight from the appointment book, and you're like, wow, that's amazing. Yeah, it's
Super fast.
yeah, but I think the configurations that you've got are kind of thinking about it a bit more broadly, give you the best chance of being able to use it more broadly from the greatest number of surgeries.
No, that's fantastic. If you could change anything about what we've delivered, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm not sure.
Sorry.
I'm not sure I would change anything as it stands at the moment, because I mean, actually, if I think back to that first conversation we had where I said to you, this is what you need to think about, and that's what you need to think about, and Keith, my practice manager, said to you, well, what about this and what about that? I think you've actually delivered on all of that. I don't think there's anything that, for this particular feature, I don't think there's anything else that I would change.
Oh, brilliant. Amazing. We have spotted some internally actually that we are considering to change. So there's a few bits around the reporting that I think I'd like to do a little bit more of a deeper dive into the stats that we're providing you. But also one of our other pilots, I won't name names, they're probably on here somewhere, I'd imagine. 92 people on right now. It's amazing. Is the appointment, the checking appointment block, to have another option to come out. So if you've checked your appointment and you haven't got one, you might still want to speak to someone because you think you should have one, rather than us actually saying, no, it just didn't work. Or you might not want to speak to someone because you were just checking if you had something. So we were thinking about potentially putting another option outside of that block so you could divert people after checking those appointments. It's just another thought. Just going to pick up Alison Turner. This feature is only available at the moment for EMIS customers. We are working with System One to try and get it in for them, but we're not able to do that at the moment. So I'm hoping, I don't have any timescales for that. I'd love to be able to provide that to you, but it's very much, oh David, I'm sorry. It's very much a System One conversation that's needed before we'll be able to give that to you. I'm really sorry, David. Sorry, there's loads of questions that have come in here. I'm just saying, do you get notified that a patient has cancelled their appointment? Yes, you do, in many ways. Justin, do you want to explain?
Yeah, you do. I believe you get an email comes through to the practice admin account, and you can set up the notifications for that. So I think our admin team get email notifications.
Yeah, here's a slide I made earlier. So just so as if by magic, yeah. So there's an email cancellation, so people can actually know. It tells them as much detail as we can. This is just an example. It's not a real patient, just in case anybody's worried. And as I mentioned earlier, it immediately clears from the clinical system, and it also updates the patient record as well, with the detail that they've cancelled the appointment via the automated service. So that's already there.
Another good question in the chat. What security is in place to make sure that the caller that rings to cancel is allowed to do so? As in, it's definitely their appointment that they're cancelling.
Yes. Yes. So the checks that are in place are the normal checks that you get when you come through, as if you're making a call to verify the patient. So it'll be date of birth and their telephone number is matched against their actual patient record, to be able to then cancel those appointments. If it's a slot that shouldn't be cancelled, obviously that's completely controllable, as we mentioned earlier. So if anyone's got a slot and they're, I don't know, under a certain list of people, I'm sure the business processes, i.e. Dustin, can give a good example of where he might actually stop those people from cancelling.
Yeah, so you can choose the slot types to stop them from being able to cancel, can't you? And like, so for example, we don't let our diabetics cancel their appointments. We don't let our child with IMS cancel their appointments, and we've got a few others that I think some of our team thought about as well, just to kind of try and make sure that we definitely follow those ones. I think SMIRS is another one as well, because actually if they're cancelling a SMIR, we need to rebook it. So we want to get that done at the time that they're phoning us, rather than them having to then try and phone us again, because it's just adding another kind of step in the process.
What with the next steps in the process, what would you actually be looking to do next to move this forward? So enhance it, maybe put it in other places in your call flow. Have you considered any additional things?
In terms of check and cancel,
yeah.
not really thought about that hugely. I mean, we've put it first and foremost as like option number one on our phone system, so that we try and funnel people, so that those who definitely want to use it, it's really, really visible and takes those people out of the call queue immediately. I guess we could. I mean, one of our bigger bits of work is to look at all of our call flow and kind of test out exactly how it's working and exactly like which functionalities are going to be best for different patients heading in different ways and using our services in different ways. So I guess when we do that, it would be quite useful to kind of take us down, like think about how we could integrate it into one of those kind of flows, but we haven't got that far in terms of our thinking yet. I think, I mean,
It's also a good question.
If people haven't looked at the flows that you can create within Exon, like that's, as soon as you even begin to look at that, then it gives you a lot more power and a lot more functionality than you probably realize you've even got. And I definitely advise people to kind of like get your teams around you, have a chat about how you can use it, and think about how you're implementing it currently. And if you haven't done that, I know we'd usually like to think we're quite an on-it practice, and actually we hadn't spent a huge amount of time looking at that, and it's something that can be really, really helpful.
Yeah, it's definitely the case. David Blake has asked, do you have it on out of hours at the moment?
Yeah, I think it's on all the time, I think, for ours, so you can check and cancel out of hours. So yeah, because there's no issues with that, because we've got it configured for the slots that we want and the timeframes that we want. It doesn't matter when they do it, it can happen any time of day or night.
Perfect. Lovely. And messages are coming in thick and fast. I feel like reading them all. Some people are answering each other. It's great. It's really good to see that everything is coming through. So what do you think your demographic find most beneficial about this process?
I think it's just the freeing up of the phone system for our reception staff to be able to answer people who do need to speak to a receptionist. I mean, that is, I think, probably in keeping with most other surgeries, that is challenge of the moment. You kind of post-COVID explosion in workload, explosion in kind of like secondary care workload transferring to us, and delays in getting patients seen in secondary care. All the mental health issues that we're experiencing, all of these things mean that we are busier than we've ever been before, and for us, our kind of our barometer of busyness, because of our demographic, is often our phone system. So anything that we can do to remove patients from that just makes our lives and our team's lives a lot better, and means that the patients who need to speak to us get to speak to us quicker.
Brilliant. Tracy, just to confirm, there's no additional cost for this feature. It's all included with your service. But just to clarify, the SMS costs are there are SMS costs. Xflow SMS has costs on it. So anytime that you're using Xflow SMSs, there is a cost associated with that, with only the exception of the patient callback. They're the only SMS that are free in our system at the moment.
And I think I know the answer to this one, but Dustin, this is for you. Do you use a different telephone number for check and cancel?
No, use the same telephone number. It's just option number one on the call list. So it's like, welcome to Long Stratton Medical Practice. If you want to check your appointment or cancel your appointment, please press 1. Takes you straight through to that flow, and then allows the patient to do those actions. And then we've got a whole series of other options after that allows the patient to then choose varying different options depending on what they want.
There's an interesting point that perhaps needs to be picked up offline, but I will just read it out. So coming back to the idea of differentiating between patients on a check and cancel, if they've got, say, a set of twins with the same date of birth, similar first names, still live with each other, how would you differentiate? Similarly, an elderly couple that share one phone number, how does the system differentiate between them so that they can cancel their own appointments?
If it can't find an exact match, it will just push them through to the reception as normal. So you wouldn't be able to go through the flow. So unless it's an exact match for one person, one household, for those appointments, it won't allow them to go through. So we don't put any risk around that with regards to sharing of data.
Fantastic, thank you. Hopefully that answers your question. It's coming up as unknown user on my my list here, so I'm sure you've got a name. I just don't know what it is. Apologies. One I think that's come in specifically for you, Mel, doesn't need us answering right now, but we're going to ask it anyway. The system will pick up appointments across other System 1 units. Hopefully that makes sense to you.
Well, obviously it doesn't work for System 1, so it's probably one
So
we do need
moving on.
to pick off
Okay.
offline.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we've got that one, I think. So it's a similar question from Hannah, but I think we've just answered it. If the telephone number doesn't match the patient record, is the patient told that they can't cancel the appointment? And would we be notified of any failed attempts?
Yes.
Once again,
it's a simple answer. The answer is yes. So basically, if it doesn't match, it doesn't then allow them to go through the check and cancel process. So it would come out and you'd go into your default call flow again. So you'd just reroute back around to reception as they would have done normally.
now this one really is. I think it does. But correct me if I'm wrong, Hannah. One that is completely off topic, but I think it's important just because it's quite relevant right now. When is the phone bar due for an update? Specifically System 1 user. Not that that matters because it's all going to be the same going forward, isn't it, Mel?
All the same going forward. Yep, all the same going forward. It is due for an update. I was actually hoping that I was going to start the rollout this week. It has been delayed because we found a very minor bug, which we're now fixing. So we're about 2 weeks behind. So it should start rolling out to general by the beginning of May. We will obviously we'll have a couple of early adopters. I think actually David Blake, you're one of those early adopters. I don't know if you know that yet, though.
You do now.
You do now. Great, hands up. That's always good. So that's we just want to stagger that out just to make sure it's completely stable, and then it will be full rollout, pushed out to System 1 customers first as of the beginning of May.
And how do you become an early adopter?
You just need to email us at products@x-on.co.uk, and we will add you to a very long list that my lovely Lorna is working through, and she'll be in touch to then organise your setup. The setup needs to be sort of handheld a little bit at the moment, just so we can make sure that there aren't any glitches. As soon as that hand holding is finished and we're really comfortable that everything works and we've gone out to enough surgeries and it's stable, we'll then turn it on for everybody, and then you'll notice in your Xflow the new blocks that will appear at the bottom of the list of the Xflow blocks, and then you can play away. Kim, is that you putting your hand up for an early adopter?
I think Kim's super keen. She's putting her email address in the chat.
Everything.
One more off-topic question from Jackie before we wrap up. There was a notification a few months ago about the outbound calls for users who had not logged in would no longer be possible. Is that still going to happen?
Yes. Sorry, I was trying to think what the change was. It's a long time ago, that change. So yes, we are slowly making that implementation. Obviously, we haven't big banged it because we need to consider all of the phones that are in other rooms and make sure them outbound users are being replaced. So we're monitoring that at the moment. Oh, there's lots of, oh God, Lorna, I'm really sorry. There's lots of interest in the pilots out there. So just before, go on, sorry.
I just a really, yes, I was just going to say, Hannah, could we click back to that slide? This is what it looks like, Hannah. So you didn't miss it. We've just overlooked it. Apologies. Yeah. This is what it would look like in your Xflow, the check and cancel block. Do you want to talk us through that, or is it?
Yeah, no, we got really excited talking to Dustin. So apologies, we've skipped through all of these slides. So this is just the prompt, the normal standard prompt, the first block. Patient identifier is obviously how we'd identify the patient. And this is where we talked about the fact if they're not identified, then they'll just go through either to a failure prompt, which you can configure, or just straight back into call flow, whichever you prefer. This is just our suggested process. The new check and cancel block is this little one here, where all the configuration sits behind it. I haven't gone into pulling up all the configuration because I knew we wouldn't have enough time for me to actually go through that. But we have some beautiful instructions, and I think Dustin is quite confident with me saying that they are quite easy to follow, and it's a pretty simple process once you get into it. The only other thing that I wanted to point out is the SMS that are sent out. So the patient experience has also been considered in this. So if you turn the SMSs on, the first SMS you can see here is if someone's checked an appointment, it just confirms their date and time and when. And then if they cancel it, it also confirms the information so that it's successfully cancelled. We do recommend that you turn the cancel one on, because if someone's done it by accident, at least they get a text message and then they can call back through and be like, oh, I accidentally pressed 1 instead of hang up or whatever, because people do make mistakes.
So final question from Edward. Do you have a very rough ballpark as to when this will be available to those that are not early adopters?
I would
very
like
rough
to,
ballpark.
I would like to say by the beginning of June, because we've got so many early adopters that have gone, yes, me, providing we get them all set up and we don't have any problems that we haven't identified already come up, then I can't see it being an issue to roll out in June. But you never know what might happen. You know, technology is very unknown and everyone sets everything up slightly differently.
We'll just take that as exactly what you said. Very, very ballpark. Things do tend to move because, as we say, we're testing it rigorously with early adopters to make sure everything's going to work properly. And let's be honest, that's what we all want. One last question, which I think is a good one, so I'm just going to slip it in. Will the text that the patient receives show the location? Because this is a practice that's got 2 branches.
Yes, it will.
Fantastic. I'm going to answer that one myself. We don't have a time frame for System 1 as yet. We're working with them to work out when we can get this feature available on the System 1 system as well. That's it from us today. I think it's fair to say Dustin's been a great asset to this, and we're really grateful for your time, Dustin. Thank you for being here. We hope everyone else has enjoyed it and got what you needed out of it. Thank you all for your participation and all the questions. It keeps us on our toes, keeps us thinking, which is what we want. If you want any further information on anything we've spoken about, don't hesitate to reach out to your customer relationship manager or the training team. We'd be happy to help. If you want to be an early adopter or a pilot, reach out to product. I'll send all of this in an email following with the recording and all the information in the next few days. In the meantime, on the behalf of all of the X1 Health team, thanks ever so much for being here. We'll see you all again around the same time next month. Thank you. Stay springy.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.
Cheers, Dustin.